Stress. When you think of stress, you may think about taxes, bills, family matters, and work. But when you ask students at Monte Vista about stress, things like homework, tests, and deadlines come to mind.
Can you describe the biggest problem in Monte Vista using one word?
Stress.
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 Stress?
Yeah, exactly. So you wanted
Monte Vista, ranked as one of the top high schools in not only California but the nation, houses around 2,400 students. Because Monte Vista is such an academic-driven school, the student body often feels the pressure to perform well academically. Although stress is an important issue that faces students on a daily basis, we set out to find how the stressful environment in Monte Vista impacts teachers and their viewpoint on this issue.
Like internally, and I don't know if it's just a pressure that students put on themselves, or if it's something that they feel from their social group or teachers or parents or a variety of things. But it's important for me to, sometimes ask a student, hey, how did you do on that math test that you were worried about? And they're like, oh, I failed it. So then I ask, how so? What'd you get? And they go, I got a B on it, or I got a B plus or B minus. And to me, that's a success.
Yeah.
But to them, it's a fail. And I think sometimes students take a grade that they get and they equate that with who they are rather than their performance on a specific assessment. So overall, when I hear students talk that way, it makes me sad. It makes me sad that there's so much pressure on them, again, regardless of where it's coming from. There's so much pressure that they can't see the small successes that they're having, and that it's almost like we're shooting for perfection, and anything that falls short of perfection is a failure. And I just feel like we're not setting ourselves up for happiness if that's the way. I mean, it's good to always strive to do your very best and to do things really well, but overall, it also makes me sad.
I think the amount of stress that people are facing at Monte Vista is excessive and unnecessary, and I think teachers put so much pressure on students that kids end up being really, really stressed, and they don't need to be that stressed at this age.
For students, it's horrible. It's far worse than it needs to be. Should I carry on with my views about that? Well, my opinion is that it's wholly unnecessary, that it's generated by parental and peer pressures that are based on very, very, very wrong assumptions, false data. People who think that there's only one path to happiness in life, and that's to get straight A's and have take every possible AP course, and join all the right clubs to get you into Harvard, which will then make you set for life. If you do that, you're fine. If you don't, you might as well commit suicide now.
Number of years. In fact, I just had, this is totally anecdotal, but Facebook throwback when they pop up an earlier memory to you. I had one pop up yesterday that was my first year teaching at Monte Vista, and I had written, grade grubbing on the weekend, get a life. I was irritated with the students emailing me frantically on the weekends about their grade, and I was like, what are you doing on the weekends? Because at that point I didn't understand what the typical experience of a Monte Vista student was. And now after a number of years with students, I have a better sense that stress is the default mode of most students. And I think coping with all the kinds of responsibilities they feel compelled to take on is, for most students, not manageable 100% of the time.
I think I respond to stressed students by listening mostly. They come and they kind of vent about all of their pent-up anxiety. So I listen. I like to provide humor when I can. And I also try not to over-assign in my own classes, just in terms of homework or projects. I think it's important for kids to be kids. This is the only chance they have, and it's kind of your last years with your parents. So I always encourage people to spend time with their family, try sport, do a club, and do something fun, have time for yourself. So those are things that I always encourage students to do to combat stress.
I think that it's a variety of things, and it's probably different for each and every one of us and Monte Vista students. So for me, I was in a situation where I didn't feel a ton of pressure from my parents. My dad always just wanted me to do my best. You know, and if that meant that I was going to do my best and still get a C on a test, he was okay with that. I think for me later on, the stress that I felt academically was stress that I was putting on myself, and it was definitely in comparison to what my friends were getting, right? So I think that what your peers, what your friends are getting kind of makes a big deal sometimes in our heads. I sometimes see students comparing tests, right? So a student will get a test and he'll say, you know, B+. And again, imagine if you were the only one who took the test and you got a B+, and you're like, okay, that's cool. But students compare that to other people's. Even an A-. If you got an A-, then the moment you compare that test to your best friend and they got an A+, how does your A- feel now?
You know, in several ways. I mean, it's sort of contagious, right? Because if my students are stressed out, there's a little bit of just that anxiety in the air that can be sometimes hard for me to maintain like a nice calm, you know, just because you kind of feel that anxiety and that stress. I think also it pushes me to amp up, because sometimes I feel like if I don't add the fuel to the fire, I'm not doing the Monte Vista thing, right? So there is kind of a balance for us as well of like, we don't necessarily want to add to student stress, but at the same time, we feel a certain amount of stress.
Although student stress is one of the main reasons stress affects teachers, the stress of Monte Vista also impacts teachers in their day-to-day personal lives.
I went home after the day that grades came out and was in tears and was like, I just feel so bad. Like, kids, you know, think that they're going to be rescinded from colleges because they got a B. And if that's true, that's not a college they want to go to. So I felt really upset at that particular point in time. And my husband was listening and was like, yeah, we have similar issues in Palo Alto where he works. So it does affect me personally often. And I don't know, I feel like I try to provide like a personality that's sort of the antidote to that, like the opposite of, so that kids are at least in one place where they're feeling comfortable and that they can ask for an extension if they need one, or I don't know, that they can just get extra help if they need it and still be successful.
I think there's a balance between realizing that, you know, stress is part of life, and to give people perspective of what is sort of a reasonable amount of stress to have, which means we're trying to do important things that matter to us, and we're busy and we have full lives. And in many ways, that's all really good stuff, right? We're glad that you care about what you're doing and you have interesting full lives, right? But at the same time, not letting that turn into the bad stress where it feels like it's out of control, it's too much, you're sacrificing other things that matter to you or your health, you know, in order to accomplish things that may or may not even matter to you that much, right? So I think it's really about people really looking at themselves and saying, all these things that I'm working for, is it what I really want? Am I really feeling good about the hard work I'm doing? Still taking care of myself? And then it's worth some hard work and some stress to do those things, right? But not if you're doing it for the wrong reasons, or you're doing it so much that it's hurting yourself. So I think it's about finding that balance, because you're gonna have to do that the rest of your life.